Welcome. So glad you tuned in on Leap of Faith as we explore Ethos. Ethos is about the characteristic spirit of our Catholic culture. It is about trust, credibility, authority. We partner with the University of Dayton as we seek to explore critical issues of our church that help us to broaden our perspective and reimagine our faith. Take the leap with us. Explore the religious imagination. Hi, our Ethos episode today continues with part 2 of Laudato Si, in defense of Mother Earth. We see in the Laudato Si document that there are 7 key goals dealing with integral ecology which require our urgent response. The cry of the earth, the cry of the poor, ecological economics, adoption of simple lifestyles, ecological education, ecological spirituality, community engagement, and participatory action. In our last show, we looked at the first 3 goals. Today, we will focus on implementation as we explore the next 4 goals. So let me introduce you to our panelists who will lead us through this discussion today. We have Marianist sister Leanne Jablonski, Ph.D. She's a member of the religious congregation, the Daughters of Mary Immaculate. She's a climate change, plant ecologist, educator, pastoral minister, and spiritual director in Dayton, Ohio, USA, with Canadian roots. She directs the Marianist Environmental Education Center that is restoring 100 acres of woods, prairie and wetlands and trails. She's coordinating the University of Dayton's Laudato Si engagement as Scholar for Faith and Environment with UD's Hanley Sustainability Institute and is on the Archdiocese of Cincinnati Creation Care, Laudato Si teams and the Ohio Sisters Justice Network. So Sister Leanne, welcome to our program. We also have Dr. Vincent Miller. He is the Goodorf Chair in Catholic Theology and Culture at the University of Dayton. He's the author of Consuming Religion, Christian Faith and Practice in a Consumer Culture, and editor of the Theological and Ecological Vision of Laudato Si, Everything is Connected. Recently, he authored 2 essays in Commonweal magazine on integral ecology in an old-growth forest and attending to loss in the same forest after catastrophic wildfire. So, Dr. Miller, welcome. We have with us Analisa Ramsahai. She is currently the Regional Program Coordinator for the Franciscan Institute for Personal and Family Development, a ministry of the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother. In addition to this, she serves on the board of directors for the International Laudato Si movement and is part of the National TNT Chapter Steering Committee. Analisa, we welcome you in a special way. Thank you. And we have our Trini, I can't say Trini born, but Trini, Sister Angela Ann Zukowski. She's been visiting us for many years, assisting in developing Catholic communications in the region. She's the director of University of Dayton's Institute for Pastoral Initiatives and the Virtual Learning Community for Faith Formation. Sister Angela Ann is also the co-producer of this Ethos show, and it's thanks to her and her hard work behind the scenes that we have all the knowledgeable panelists that we have. So let's begin our show, part 2 of this exciting discussion. Now, our lives have really become complicated and cluttered. There are many ways we can declutter our lives, from knocking things off our calendar so we're less busy to developing good habits that are more sustainable to our planet. In Laudato Si, our Pope Francis points out, many people today sense a profound imbalance which drives them to frenetic activity and makes them feel busy in a constant hurry, which in turn leads them to ride roughshod over everything around them. This too affects how they treat the environment. An integral ecology includes taking time to recover a serene harmony with creation, reflecting on our lifestyle and our ideals, and contemplating the Creator. So, Dr. Miller, How can this adoption of simple lifestyles have an impact on our environment?
Thank you, Natasha. That's a great place to begin again. The problems we face go beyond our individual choices. Our choices take place within a massive system of the global economy, but the choices we make still can have an impact. We're connected, and everything we consume comes from somewhere. It's harvested, fished, extracted, or made in a factory somewhere. And the technology we have today, that we have as a civilization, gives us power to have an impact on the world more than any generation has before us. That also means that we impact the earth more than any previous generation as well. As I said in the last section, we see the commodities, we see the things that are there, and at this point, people do struggle to feed their families, but we also are faced with a glut of things that are made, often quite cheaply. Cheap clothes, cheap goods. Why not purchase them? Each one of those things has an impact on the planet, a cost in extraction, a cost to ecosystems, and a cost in CO2 emissions, both in making things, the factories that make them use electricity and fossil fuels, and also the cost in transporting them. As people who live in Trinidad and Tobago know, as an island economy, the cost of transportation and how diesel ship fuel is part of everything you consume. But within that system, the decisions we make really matter. To take but one example with food, a kilo of beef produces nearly 100 kilos of carbon dioxide emissions, whereas a kilo of rice produces less than 5. So choices to eat a vegetarian diet or a diet that's more vegetarian than meat-based can have a profound impact on how much carbon our lifestyles are emitting. Now, I know very well that many people have very constrained choices in what they eat. But within those choices, eating farther down the food chain, more towards vegetables and grains rather than higher up, especially with red meats, that decision makes a profound impact. As we make other decisions about consumption, the cheap goods that are often offered to us, those have a profound cost as well. We always remember that there's a factory somewhere that's making them. There are ships that are bringing them to us. And as Pope Francis says in that quote, right, there's a busyness, there's a gluttedness that comes with life in a consumer culture. And by turning away from the engagement with these things and to engage the deeper things around us, the rest of creation, the relationships we're in, and ultimately God, that's where we can find true fulfillment.
Right, thank you. So we understand the idea of decluttering and making wise, sustainable choices, as Dr. Miller highlighted. But it seems that Laudato Si is also telling us to slow down. The continued acceleration of changes affecting humanity and the planet is coupled today with a more intensified pace of life and work, which might be called rapidification. Although change is part of the working of complex systems, the speed with which human activity has developed contrasts with the naturally slow pace of biological evolution. Moreover, the goals of this rapid and constant change are not necessarily geared to the common good or to integral and sustainable human development. There was once a slogan, I remember, "Stop the world, I want to get off." So, Sister Leanne, the million-dollar question is, how do we achieve this balance? How do we progress sustainability?
We can't really get off this planet because Mother Earth we're given is all that we've got. So we've got to really be part of our lives together in a beautiful way. And applying the wisdom of our indigenous ancestors where we live is very helpful. Many of the world's cultures have used long-term wisdom thinking, asking the question, how would this choice impact the 7th generation from us, some 200 years into the future? Often our economic system and decision-making doesn't consider this. We just think about current costs and we think we can have unlimited growth. But that's not how nature works. Our planet is finite. There's no such thing as throwing something away. We need a longer term thinking, choosing what is truly for the common good and will have the least impact in the long run. We also have to think about cradle to grave thinking in the technologies we develop and the solutions that we take from individual to national and global levels. Think about all of the resources that go into something, and you want it to be long lasting, and how at each stage will it be used, and then what's going to happen when it's done? Is it just waste, or can it be recycled, reused? What natural ecosystems and peoples will be negatively impacted? And even in our renewable energy choices, we save energy. There is a cost in mining raw materials for batteries, for example, or a cost in disrupting the land and people in every choice. And it may differ in each place. So thinking about what does the least harm for the ecosystems and the people in each place is important. And choosing what makes best sense requires having a sustainability lens in all of our decision making. Sometimes it costs more in money up front to do something, but it will pay back economically and certainly ecologically in reducing carbon emissions and creating a healthier environment for us all. So much money is spent in healthcare costs later if we're not wise up front. You know, we're creatures of habit. We often get caught up in time-saving, easier choices and don't always think about the carbon footprint or waste in our choices. And no matter what, all of us, as Vince Miller suggested, can make choices to use a bit less, eat lower on the food chain, be a little more uncomfortable, and reach out to help the disadvantaged be more comfortable. Conservation, reusing, and using less is all good. Can we use compostables? Can we refuse those plastic bottles of a beverage we don't really need? Can we learn from natural ecosystems which recycle everything? Sometimes for me, it's helpful to remember, when am I the happiest? So everybody listening right now, stop and remember one of your happiness moments. Probably it isn't a time or place that cost a lot or used a lot of things. Often the favorite memory is being with family or loved ones, or in the beauty of nature, stopping and reflecting. I find when I take the time out to pray in nature, slow down and encounter God in the beauty of the cool woods, the bright prairie flowers, and their pollinators' wonders, the sounds of the stream and birds, the visitors that are coming from the Caribbean to spend time in Ohio in the summer, I am renewed and replenished and better able to make sustainable choices. I think all of God's creation is cheering us on, and it's important to listen to them all.
Wonderful, sister. So you're really calling us, I love it, to wisdom thinking. And that's a wonderful segue into our next goal, which is ecological education. So Analisa, this is all about fostering Laudato Si themes within the community through the various media campaigns, social media posts, basically having constant new and innovative marketing strategies. And I would expect that this type of education and awareness would have to be adapted to target issues specific to geographical regions. So how well are we doing that to address our Caribbean environmental situation and reality?
Thanks, Natasha, for raising that very relevant question. The media is a great evangelization and educational tool. And as you can see from this program, we are learning and hearing different experiences and ideas that we can adopt in the Caribbean as well. So thanks, Sister Leanne and Mr. Miller, for your sharing. I believe that this is so important to help us plant seedbeds to cultivate a culture of care and hope for the earth and the poor. As you can see, both are very connected. And this is what we are discussing today in Laudato Si. it is important to put the climate crisis in context so people can understand and relate from their personal level and culturally in their context to how that they can be involved in taking urgent climate action. For the Caribbean region, I can say that we can relate to hurricanes, floods, this extreme heat we're experiencing these days and unpredictable weather. We are on the front line, and we are vulnerable communities experiencing the full impacts of climate change that we are discussing. From loss of jobs, people would have been experiencing homes, lives, you name it, even becoming climate refugees when disaster strikes. So it's so real for us as Caribbean people, but we are becoming much more resilient. And we are witnessing, for example, in Dominica, they have rebuilt after that Hurricane Maria in 2017. They have become disaster resilient through the experiences. We are seeing leaders rise up and raise their voices, such as Prime Minister Mia Mottley, who has planned to phase out fossil fuels by 2030. And this is needed because we heard Mr. Miller speak about decluttering and reducing our carbon emissions. And these are all urgent climate action which are needed. In the Caribbean region, we are becoming much more aware that this is needed. We have heard, and you may have heard as well, that Pope Francis is speaking about writing a second part to the encyclical Laudato Si, and he's going to discuss, about the extreme weather events we're experiencing and much more. And I can speak about from my experiences working with the grassroots communities in schools and parishes, religious communities, and so on in the Caribbean islands. People are aware of the Laudato Si themes, and they are implementing climate action projects that can help us become more sustainable, for example, gardening or reducing our single-use plastics, even investing in renewable energy. People are doing that as well. And they're helping feed the poor and becoming involved with helping the migrants reintegrate into society. I love Sister when she spoke about contemplative prayer in nature. That is so needed because ecological education and spirituality go hand in hand. And in that last chapter in Laudato Si encyclical letter, Pope Francis dedicated that last chapter to ecological spirituality and ecological education, because this is a pathway in the journey towards a lifelong ecological conversion that we all need. And this will help us move from that personal conversion to a community conversion to help us go out and inspire some change. I'm going to speak some examples about the young people using social media today as a strategy to not only raise their voices, but to share experiences, to share their stories, so other persons from around the world can connect and create that community where we can take collective action together. So media is a great tool, a communication tool, to engage the audience as well as an intergenerational audience. I know that the Laudato Si movement, for example, has used an online program, a free online program, to encourage persons to become Laudato Si animators, so that they can be equipped and empowered to help local communities, their parishes and schools and so forth, take climate action and to inspire others for these changes using that pastoral cycle of the See, Judge, Act model. So I can say this is so effective, the media, in gearing us towards an ecological understanding and transformative action. Thank you.
Wonderful, Analisa. So as you say, really, it's all about awareness, So we really have to commend the dicastery for promoting integral human development for the wealth of educational content that they have made available, the most recent being the letter. So Sister Leanne, for viewers who may not yet be aware, can you tell us about this initiative and how far its reach has been?
Yes. Well, the letter movie captures the spirit of Pope Francis' Laudato Si encyclical, which encyclical means a long letter, that was written for everyone in the world, people of faith and goodwill. So the movie tells the story of Pope Francis reaching out and sending letters to individuals from several continents and walks of life each leaders in their own culture, from a young activist in India to an indigenous elder of the Amazon. None of them are traditional Catholics. They each traveled to Rome and Assisi to meet the Pope and share the story and listen to the hopes, concerns, and challenges that each one is facing in their own place. They form a community of care. True encounter in the spirit of synodality, we can each practice in solidarity with the Synod on Synodality happening this coming October. How can we truly listen to one another's experiences, concerns, and hopes? In our diocese and in our Marianist religious family of laity, sisters, brothers, we are imitating this process by trying to hear more of the voices and stories, and also the hopes. Art is where change happens, where we are deeply touched. And so these stories can inspire then our transformation and action. How can you invite and listen to the stories from the indigenous, the cry of the young, the disadvantaged in your own networks and place? Over 10 million people have already viewed the letter on YouTube or at World Youth Day. It's free, and there are great resources on the website to explore. There this week, I've been learning more today about how the Caribbean is impacted. I invite you to explore all the resources and ideas for action on the letter website. Each of us can learn about our own and other places. Can we each try to listen more deeply and more often to the cries of the earth and our brothers and sisters?
That is a
Take
wonderful
action.
place, yes. Community of care, formation of a community of care. You speak about, sister, listening to each other. And so that leads us, Dr. Miller, to our next goal, which is ecological spirituality. And in your book, The Theological and Ecological Vision of Laudato Si, Everything is Connected, you conclude, integral ecology is one of the major contributions of Laudato Si. It develops the long-standing Catholic moral valuing of relationships from the social to the ecological level. Integral ecology is not simply a moral principle. It is a way of seeing that seeks to be alert and attentive to interconnections, rather than accept a simplistic appraisal of the world as a collection of dead objects available for human manipulation. Integral ecology inspires us to probe deeper, to seek to understand the complex and delicate interconnections that sustain the life of creation, including our own. Once we begin to know the complexity of creation, we can more deeply love and protect it. So earlier on, Dr. Miller, you spoke about recognizing that salvation is about God's gracious opening of our hearts to see, to love, to care for our sibling creatures. Is this the essence of adopting an ecological spirituality?
I certainly think it is. Catholicism is a religion of relationships. In Trinidad and Tobago, I don't need to tell you about the Trinity, I'd imagine. Catholicism is based on the Trinity. We have this fundamental practice we call communion, the Eucharist, which brings us into union with both the crucified and resurrected Son of God, but also with the gathered church. In its social ethics, Catholicism is profoundly attentive to community and relationships. So the fundamental principle of Catholic politics is the common good, a kind of good we can only achieve together as a community rather than our separate goods by ourselves and competing with one another. We have this notion of solidarity, of standing with and sharing in the sufferings and needs of other human beings, near and far, that we're called to enter into those relationships and to act together for the flourishing of all. And so Laudato Si really builds upon all of these bases, right? Catholicism is communion, the common good, solidarity, and it extends them based on Genesis to the entire community of creation, that there is a community that goes beyond human society, and it's one in which that sustains human society. We are part of these bigger relationships, and it calls us to love and cherish and promote them. So God's salvation is the opening of our hearts to see our own poverty and our own need for salvation, our own need for support, and to see the needs of others around us. And Laudato Si broadens that lens, opening our hearts to see the cry of creation around us, to see the intricate connections that are happening and upon which our lives depend. So there is a spirituality there that's completely consonant with the deepest concerns of Catholic spirituality.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Miller. You talk about communion, you talk about relationship. So really it's all about discovering God in all things. So our last goal, community engagement and participatory action. This is all about advocacy and supporting local communities and neighborhood ecosystems. So let's come back to our Caribbean story, Analisa. Is this about beach or river cleanups? To what extent is this community engagement happening, and what needs to be put in place to further expand its effectiveness?
Thanks, Natasha. I love how you mentioned beach cleanup and river cleanup, because typically when you hear about the Caribbean, you automatically think about beach, right? Unfortunately, it's not about only cleanups, because this is a reactive approach, and this is a reactive approach towards the harm we are causing to God's creation. So we need a much more proactive and sustainable approach to implement these 7 Laudato Si goals into these 7 sectors under the Laudato Si action platform. We need an effective Laudato Si action plan, and this can help draw up some concrete action that we can take together as community, as church as well, and to work towards an achievable integral ecology vision within the next 7 years. This is part of a discernment process when you are discerning to become part of the Laudato Si action platform. And in terms of community engagement, I can say that for the Archdiocese of Port of Spain, there have been a lot of exciting activities taking place. And I'm glad you mentioned the letter, because the letter is something that we have been rolling out in our diocese since early on this year. We have premiered the letter with the Laudato Si movement, Pt2 chapter, whom the Living Water community is part of, as well as with the interreligious communities, the Youth Commission, and several schools. We have been doing that as an ecological education approach to help people understand in a visual way what Laudato Si and what Pope Francis is speaking about, and to help understand how we can work together in a practical way to implement Laudato Si in our communities. The season of Creation Month is coming up, and I'm going to encourage and invite each of you to do something for Care for Creation, whether it's prayer, whether it's a reflection, or personally, or with your community. Let's take part in the season of creation. At the Archdiocese, we have the Mass coming up for Season of Creation at La Vega. We have the Season of Creation Challenge with the Franciscan Institutes. Many Catholic and primary schools, they take part in this very actively in this challenge. And we have been collaborating even with secular groups such as the Bar for Sports. We have done a lot of beach cleanups and community cleanups as a nation building exercise. So as you can see, that collaboration and partnership are strongly needed to have this plan being done effectively. And I would hope and love to see that the Archdiocese and other organizations within the sector of the Laudato Si platform within our Caribbean region become part of the Laudato Si action platform soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Analisa. You're calling us to be proactive rather than reactive. Thank you for that. We have looked at the 7 goals and how we can respond to the cry of the earth, the cry of the poor, ecological economics, adoption of simple lifestyles, ecological education, ecological spirituality, and community engagement and participatory action. So as we wrap up, we want to remember what Pope Francis says. Yet all is not lost. Human beings, while capable of the worst, are also capable of rising above themselves, choosing again what is good, and making a new start, despite their mental and social conditioning. We are able to take an honest look at ourselves, to acknowledge our deep dissatisfaction, and to embark on new paths to authentic freedom. So, Sister Angela Ann, what are your thoughts on our ability to change what we do as humans?
No, thank you. This is a great conversation. I just love the application that we can take from this program. I want to thank our panelists here. I have a quote on my refrigerator that says, "Only that day dawns to which you are truly aware." And what I hear from all the presenters is we have to become more aware. We have to become more present, more contemplative to the world around us. And Laudato Si and everything we spoke about, it's not a program, it's a way of life. It's a vocation. It gets to the heart of what it means to be human, integrated into the world in which we live in conversation. So I hope all those who have listened to this program are going to take this to heart and do something with it. Not just listen, but do something with it. That's what's going to make a difference in the world, in the lives of our children. And it's the way of being holy today.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much, Sister, for that call. And thank you, all our panelists, for this lovely discussion. We want to leave with this quote from Laudato Si. The Creator does not abandon us. He never forsakes his loving plan or repents of having created us. Humanity still has the ability to work together in building our common home. So we thank God for this quote, for his resurrection, and for his hope as we work together to live in this wonderful place that he's given us, our planet. Viewers, thank you very much. Panelists, thank you.